business I started about 3 years ago, partially thanks to Angie and David, who were clients of my partner.
Could you say the name of your organization again? I didn't.
She
She
can
could
do
do
better
better
than
than that.
It's Living in Place Solutions.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and I'm going to start by telling you that aging in place or living in place basically is living where you choose to live. But there's three components that I find sacred because I know what it's like to not have them. They've got some.
Okay, I'll send it back to you.
And that's your autonomy, your dignity, and your independence. So we always want to safeguard that. So there's the National Aging in Place Council has identified 5 pillars of successful aging. And those pillars can help you in making your decision. And I can send you all the slides afterwards. Anybody that wants them, just let me know, so you don't have to take notes if you don't want to. Okay? And they are health, which in some ways I address a little bit. Finance. We've all sort of been thinking about this since we got our first job and they took Social Security out. But we sure weren't prepared for this world. Community. Well, you smart people are involved. I got to community. Housing. That's definitely where Judith and I both come in. And then the one that nobody thinks of, but you have access to it being members of the village, is transportation. Particularly those of us who live in Howard County, or live almost in Howard County, like a Howard County wannabe me. There is no way to get around successfully. Years ago, I participated in the Leadership Howard County program, and one of our assignments was to take a Columbia bus from the medical plan to the mall, to the hospital, to Heavenly Hand at Dorsey Surge, and back to the mall. It took all day, literally. We had to get things from each place to prove we'd been there. It took an engineer, they had us in groups. The engineer in the group had to use different colored markers to figure out. It was not a good experience at all.
I would just like to piggyback on that. I grew up in Columbia, and we used to take the minibuses. Back when they had minibuses, and they go from each village to the mall, and then you have to transfer at the mall.
Yeah.
So, but those are great criteria by which to evaluate where you should live. Pretty much everyone I've spoken to has a fear, and that's that they bite the bullet, they move to independent, an over 55 community and independent living, assisted living, nursing home, memory care, any of the above, and they hate it. And you can't go back and get your house back. Basically, there's so many reasons to stay. The newest polls show that 90% of us want to stay in our homes. Our memories are there, all our stuff is there. In some cases, we have great relationships with our neighbors. We certainly have familiarity. Our places of worship are there. We know how to get to our doctors from there. I mean, lots of compelling reasons to stay. What can upset the apple cart is our safety. First and foremost, is the neighborhood still safe? And that's very hard to access on our own. Very, very hard to access. The other is, I just figured out how we could do this. We'll wait till we take a good break. Because there's so few of us, anytime you want to stop and ask me a question, stop me and ask me a question. We can afford to do that. And you shouldn't have to wait till the end. The second is the thing I'm most concerned about, and that's your safety in your house. We have a tagline, one fall can change it all. Once we fall, we in this demographic, we're 4 times more likely to fall again. After the second fall, we're like 5 times more likely to end up in some kind of care community. We lose our confidence, we start to walk differently, we stop picking up our feet, our balance gets worse. It's a terrible, ongoing thing. The second thing is that our eyes needs 4 times more light than a 25-year-old. Our houses were not built for aging. Even ranchers, I've been in multiple ranchers where the doorway to the powder room is 24 inches wide. ADA would love to see 36 inches. However, 32 inches is what you need to get a walker through. And probably a transport wheelchair, a smaller wheelchair, certainly not an electric wheelchair. But there's some things that are simple and easy to do, whether you're moving into a new place or you're staying in your house for a year or 6 months. The first one is upgrade all light bulbs to LED, all of them, to the soft white light. BG&E, in your gas and electric bill, those inserts that we all just throw away, one of them entitles you to up to 15 bulbs that they'll come in and replace for you. They'll climb the ladders and do all of that. I've never heard of a homeowner who didn't get as many as they needed plus an extra case or so. So it's an easy, free thing to do. Grab bars, grab bars, grab bars. And when we think of grab bars, we think of what's in bathrooms and hotels. They're very institutional. Grab bars now are beautiful, can be beautiful. There's some that are solid wood with beautiful chrome or satin or whatever tips to them. There's some that are just, there's a lot of disguised grab bars. There are towel bars that are grab bars, toilet paper holders that are grab bars, shampoo and corner shelves that are grab bars. So there's a grab bar that goes around the controls of your shower that just become part of the shower, and you stop noticing them. Upgrade your doorknobs to lever knobs. They're so much easier to grasp. A really simple one: secure all your throw rugs, whether you use grip tape or double-faced tape, or they make a spray you can spray on the back of your rug and your floor that will grip it. But just, you want to be sure that tripping hazard is gone. There are 4 houses that I've been in that I didn't have to say, clear the clutter. Yours was one. You have no clutter in pants. I've probably done 125 houses. There's only 4 that I didn't have to say that. And it's stuff accumulates the amount of space allotted for it and how long we've been there. The longer you are, the more stuff you have, and the harder it is to get rid of. We are all children of the Depression. We were all raised with don't get rid of anything good. It's painful. I can help other people do it. At my house, it's agony. It's just stupid little stuff. But I have a great resource. I got my first certification, the Sunday before Governor Hogan closed the state on Friday. So I spent my pandemic vetting all kinds of resources. I used to say I had a Rolodex, but younger people in the group rolled their eyes at me and didn't know what I was talking about. Of resources. If you need someone to help you organize them, please reach out to me. I've got them. And then the last one is add rails, preferably to both sides of the stairs. You live or work in the greatest county for aging. It's a great time to be aging. Every single day, 10,000 of us turn 65. Next year, it's going to be 15,000. A day, just in the United States. That gives us something we haven't had since we were teenagers: buying power. Suddenly everybody wants us. And because everybody wants us every day, I am like a little kid. Guess what I found today? And people that know me know that I really am like that. Every day there's new exciting things on the market that make it easier to stay in our homes or to stay anywhere we choose. One of the things that makes it so great is Howard County offers a property tax credit that's need blind to every resident of the county. Your daughter, if she lives in this county, is eligible for this, for safety modifications. It's $2,500. It used to be just outright. They changed it this year. It's $2,500 or 50%. You can
So
get
that's
up to $2,500 off. So that means if you spend $5,000, you get $2,500 off your property taxes.
Every year.
The
Oh,
only
every year?
caveat. Every year, yes. Yes, ma'am.
Is that the only county that's doing it?
Yes, but the state of Maryland, and I have that too,
That's the perfect question.
offers,
Not in this county.
what county are you in?
Baltimore County.
Not yet. Not yet. I'm lobbying. I'm lobbying hard without knowing how to lobby. Maryland offers a up to $5,000 income tax credit, state income tax credit for safety modifications.
Really?
I have that here as well. Now, the caveat on this one is that things that don't normally have to be permitted, for instance, stair lifts don't need a permit, need to be permitted with this. So you have to go through that process. For this, they changed the way it works. This is the first year I have not, no one's seen it to fruition, so I can't tell you if it's working better. It used to be that they had $1 million and that was it. So early filers got the worm, as it were. The earlier you filed, the better. Well, anybody who's got investments and have to wait for their K-1s that come at the end of February didn't have as great an opportunity as somebody who filed on January 3rd. They changed that to make it more fair. Now, you file your taxes. You fill out the application, you send it in. They have a meeting, they divvy up the money, and then you file an amended return. I don't know if it's gonna work or not, but I've got these here for anybody that would like them.
So what agency is that under?
Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development.
Okay.
But this is everything you need. I strongly advise all of you all to have some kind of assessment done of your property. And this is not a sales pitch for me. That's what I do, and I would be thrilled, but there's ways to do it without me. AARP puts out a booklet that you can call and get from them for free that basically tells you enough to keep you safe. When my partner and I come in, my colleague has to come in, we check everything. We check the temperature. He checks everything. I talk. I know that's a shock to you. But he checks the temperature of the water as it comes out of the spigot to make sure that there's no scalding risk. So, safety, housing, comes down usually to two major or three major issues. One is entry into the house. Builders for years have believed that you had to have a porch and steps to it to keep water out of the house. We now know lots of ways to change that, but unless you build a new house, you're stuck with what you've got. You know, if you're moving to a condo, you can probably avoid that, but there might be a 1 or 2 steps up. You can buy ramps, you can rent ramps. For people that have steps and a landing and steps and a landing and steps and a landing, like you do, they actually make outdoor stair lifts that can go on up. That's an extreme, you probably, rather than a ramp. But if you're in a wheelchair, it's not so extreme, and it gives you the freedom to stay in your house. I don't have a cost on that because that varies so much by home that I can't give you a ballpark. But what I thought I'd do is give you some ballparks so that you can also compare the cost of moving to the cost of staying at home. First, bathing. I had firsthand experience when I couldn't get up the steps to my house, up to my shower. And bathing in the stationary tub is miserable. In the last 3 months, a young brother and sister in California have invented a totally portable shower. Totally portable. It comes in boxes that would fit in my little Honda Fit, and I'm telling you, it's little. I could carry it myself one at a time, but I still could carry it myself. A 10-year-old child could put it together. It's so simple, it's clamps. It is designed to be used seating. There's a ramp in that extends or goes down, becomes the door. It is totally private. It hooks up to a garden hose and the kitchen sink or the bathroom sink. The water is stored underneath. It drains back out the same way. It's not cheap, but it's cheap for getting a bathroom. If you just have a powder room, it would fit in like this space here. So it doesn't take up a lot of space. $4,500. Even more excited. This is what I get goosebumps, because a bathroom remodel today, if you went soup to nuts, you figure, I'm doing this, I'm gonna make it gorgeous, is a minimum of $35,000, and that's a minimum. That's using Home Depot quality, not knocking it, but sort of generic materials. I've seen them go up as high as $95,000, depending on the size of the bathroom. Someone invented something called Clear Cut Step. It works by cutting out your tub. I have pictures. I can show them to anybody afterwards. I'm sorry that it's not working. You cut out the tub, and this kit finishes it. Comes 3 ways. One, a 4-inch step, which is what most showers are. Second, a 1-inch step, which allows anybody except someone in a wheelchair to get in. Third way, if you're worried about resale value, comes with a door. Now, I don't recommend it for taking a bath. And the reason I don't, and what they don't tell you about the walk-in tubs, is the best ones drain in about 45 seconds. 45 seconds doesn't seem like much, but if you're all nice and warm and cozy, being naked and then getting cold is not fun. And most of them take about, the more reasonable ones take about 2 minutes. That's a very long time to be naked and cold. It also, you have to wait for it to fill. You have to get in and wait. And they'll tell you the seat is heated, but that doesn't do much for the front of you. So, but it's great if you're worried about, gee, this is not my forever. I mean, my kids are going to sell this at some point. We need to have a bathtub. You can have a bathtub. The next step up are the showers in a day that you see advertised. Again, this is subjective. This is my personal opinion. I don't like most of them. And I don't like most of them because, first off, I don't mind real plastic, but when it's pretending to be marble, it kind of offends me. They're too shiny, and a lot of them look like the seams have been finished like this. We used to only see that in gas station bathrooms. But there's a company I like a lot, and there's new ones again every day coming. It's called Fibo. It's a European product where they've had wet rooms for forever. It's laminate over marine grade plywood. And they have some that look like tile. Frankly, they don't look like tile. But the ones, they have some that look like wood and look like marble, and not marble, like cement, which surprisingly is good looking, are really quite handsome. The biggest thing for you to take away from here is if you decide to do any kind of bathroom remodel, 99 out of 100 contractors will tell you that they have to cut your floor joists. And that's old school. They had to notch them to get the drain to be lower than the floor. There's a company called Rapid Recess. If you take nothing away, remember this, because it becomes a simple place and play. they've got a kit that will use a Schluter pan, which is state of the art, will drain, and you can have a wet room without a door and be safe. And in an ideal world, we would all have wet rooms. There's a concept that's come into the language of our industry, and that's visitability. Besides, and in fact, Angie said, a friend fell off the porch. You want anybody who comes to see you to be able to come to see you. And when you think about it, who's clumsier than a toddler or a 15-year-old boy? I have a nephew who's turning 16 in July. He's only 5'10", but he's going to be a giant because his father is 6'7". He wears a size 13 shoe. That poor kid can't get out of the way of his feet. He has no clue how to go up steps successfully. You'd think he'd, at this point, learn, but you know, he's pretty much always at the bottom rubbing his head. So you want it to be safe for them too. And that's why we say 2 rails. You go up with your right hand, you go down with your right hand. It's on the other side. Yes, ma'am.
Do you know why on almost any building there's only one side?
Cheaper.
That's it?
It's cheaper. It's because in some it makes the space too narrow. They didn't plan ahead. We're aging fine. It's the buildings that aren't. It really, it's not us. It's the buildings. But yes, there should be one on each side. Sometimes you just can't. But I have a slide that I can't show you of stairs that I did that were the scariest stairs I've ever seen. There were walls halfway down, and then it completely opened up, no rails. It was terrifying. I had to have somebody come and take my hand, and that's not how I go up and down stairs. And we solved that. They loved the openness. We solved that with lucite panels with a rail on top of them. So I have some beautiful pictures. I'm really sorry. Beautiful pictures of wet rooms that if anybody's interested, I'd be glad to share.
Could you define a wet room?
A wet room where every surface can get wet.
So just a bathroom essentially that.
It's a bathroom.
Where everything can get wet.
It's like
Yes.
a head on a boat.
Yeah.
It's like a hat on a boat. Or if you've been to Europe, a lot of their bathrooms are built that way.
Yeah.
So it has a drain in the floor.
It has a
And
drain
then
in the
shower
floor.
just-
Or even now they'll put a linear drain at the back of the shower and they don't even add an extra drain.
Oh.
This is self-defeating, isn't it?
I mean,
You can't get in, you can't get out.
It kind of depends, because I know I'm more likely to take a bath than I was when I was younger,
Very
because
different.
I'm more dizzy in a shower, etc.
Get
Well-
a seat, get a seat.
No.
Yeah. My husband wanted a kitchen, a large kitchen. I said, over my dead body, which he almost did. I said, how about we then do the entire 1 floor handicap accessible? So we converted the powder room to a shower.
yes.
And you can get a wheelchair in there, you can get a place to sit, you can take a shower, one of those things is hand showers.
Oh, that's great.
And people coming in, if you have guests, it still looks elegant enough.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You can make it as
Yeah,
really
right, but
quite
the tub is
beautiful.
always a problem. The tub is, if you're getting in and getting out, that's where you fall.
Yeah.
Most people fall into the tub.
I love gadgets. I loved gadgets before I did this. I'm the daughter of a man who loved gadgets, so I grew up with them.
Yeah.
They make a chair that you can get at Amazon. It's a lift, battery operated, remote controlled chair. You sit in the chair,
I like that.
it raises, it pivots, it moves you over to the tub, it lowers you to within 3 inches of the bottom of the tub, and then gets up, lifts you back up and takes you back out again. For people who love, my mother at 88 years old never had a shower in her life, ever. She had a shower in both of her, every house she ever lived in. She also never wore pants a single day of her life either. So Stairs, what to do about stairs. You start with 2 rails. The longer you can walk your steps, the better it is. But we all get to a point, like carrying laundry up and down the stairs, or anything else that we have to carry becomes problematic. So the first line of defense is a stair lift. There are multiple places that will rent stair lifts, or rent to own. It's a great way to try it out and see if you like it. This only works on straight staircases. If you've got a landing or a curved step, it doesn't work. Stair lift costs on average $3,500 for a straight stair lift. Again, I want you to have these facts when you're looking at where to live. Rental is about $495.
So a month?
Mhm.
$495 a month?
They are designed for short-term rental. However, if rent to own, it just comes up, it's just making a large payment towards it.
So is something like that tax deductible as a medical expense?
If your doctor prescribes it, it certainly qualifies for the Maryland state money. Okay, if you've got a landing, it's hard to give you a price. But up until about 5 years ago, there was nothing you could do but put 2 stair lifts in, which how do you get across the landing? You can't. Now they make them that curve and even curve out to go out of the way. They fold up, they're less intrusive. And those start, depending on how many steps and that kind of thing, about $10,000. I had a client that had a custom house in Fulton. They had like 20-foot ceilings and the staircase curved. That was the most expensive one I know of, and it was about $25,000. But they were looking at a place comparable to Miller's Grant. It was an $800,000 buy-in, which is a lot of money. One of them had memory care issues. One of them could be an independent living. So they'd be separated, which is problematic. $8,000 for her, $15,000 for him. That's $23,000 a month. They had long-term care, but nowhere near that amount. So putting in a $25,000 stair lift made sense. We first started with an elevator because that made even more sense, but she's claustrophobic.
How expensive are elevators?
That's what I was going to get to next.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
About 10 years ago, I put an elevator in for a woman with multiple disabilities, and there was only one kind. A mechanical elevator with a mechanical room. Back then, that cost about $85,000. Now it would be over $100,000, probably. But that's big enough that 3 people can ride in, an electric wheelchair can get in it. Since then, they've developed something called Through the Floor. They have other names for it, but that's the one I like the best because it describes what it does. Now, the biggest problem with that is there's only 1 or 2 companies that will do 3 stories. So if you need to get to 3 stories, it becomes as expensive as the elevator with the room. It just takes up less space. A 1-person elevator is useless. You can't get on it with a laundry basket. So you can't get a wheelchair in, you could just get a walker in. 2-person elevator starts, they say $35,000, but by the time you have the contractor come in, and you don't need a shaft for it, they just cut an opening in the floor. It goes on top, so it's seamless when the elevator's in place. And the bottom is there when it's up or down. There are a lot of great brands, Severia, Stilts. I think Bruno's starting to make one now. Pollock, which is a European. They make pneumatic elevators. It's a pneumatic tube. It just plugs in.
This sounds very interesting. I
Mike,
don't know about this.
Mike got in it, and as I watched him shoot up, all I could think of is Scotty beat me up.
Makes me think of
You-
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
You shouldn't be assuming that the human needs to be in there. I mean, I can walk down the steps, but if I could send my laundry down by itself, are there any that are meant to be? 'Cause like
Yes.
a
The
pneumatic
dumb
thing.
ladder, like a dumb
Yes,
ladder.
a dumbwaiter.
Like a dumbwaiter, yeah.
Unfortunately, because there's less demand, the price is higher.
Oh, really? Okay. 'Cause
So you would think because it's smaller, it requires less work, that it would be cheaper, but it's all supply and demand. I think technology keeps getting cheaper. I think we're gonna see prices come down as they figure out cheaper and cheaper ways to make things. And the market. Now,
The demand for it's going up too.
all of the training that I have, and I have 3 certifications, were based on the premise that you don't think for now. You think if you want to stay in your house pretty much till the end of your life, what can we do to make sure you're safe now and forever? Which is why I think 2-person elevator that'll take a wheelchair. But if your goal is just to get laundry up and down the stairs, or to get the groceries up the stairs, or cat food, which can be heavy, or something like that, then yeah, 1-person elevator will do it.
But the other aspect of it is, as we've looked at this, it would take a lot less space. Because we've thought about something like an elevator, well, where would we put it in our house? And the houses weren't designed for that.
They were not designed for that. Sometimes it's need-based. If one of the 2 of you couldn't climb the steps at all, then having that extra room becomes less important as it does getting down and out of the house. So, it's something you don't have to do until you need it. Most times I say to people, if you can afford it, do it when you can, because it's so much easier to make a decision with a level head than in a hot panic. I have clients now that's kind of put off things, and unfortunately he had to have his leg amputated from the knee down. He's got a 24-inch door to the powder room. I mean, there's just no way he's getting in. And I really wish they'd let me do that 2 years ago when I first did an assessment. So I'm probably running close to out of time. But smart technology is our friend. Every day, again, I'm like, guess what I found today? I found a monitoring system. Remember those words that I said, autonomy, dignity, independence. Most monitoring systems work with cameras on microphones. And that's so invasive, I can't even think about it. It makes me sick to my stomach. This is a little sensor system that's customized to your home. There is a sensor that goes in your bathroom that monitors how many times you use the bathroom. Well, why is that important? Well, if you normally get up in the middle of the night and use the bathroom 3 times and suddenly you go 12 times, your caregiver's alerted that there might be a UTI. And if you're taking medicine, many of us are guilty of taking medicine till we feel better and stopping. And then you're back in the bathroom 12 times so they know you're not taking your medicine correctly. There is some fall detection that looks at your gait. There is definitely fall detection. If you fall anywhere in the house, it alerts a caregiver. If you don't open your front door, it alerts a caregiver. If you don't close your front door, it alerts a caregiver, which can be a problem for people with cognitive issues. If you leave your stove on, there's a sensor in the hood that monitors temperature and humidity. It knows the stove is on with no pot there or nothing in the pot. All of those things warrant a call to the caregiver. Do any of you need it now? Doesn't seem like it. No, but it's good to know it's out there. You want to still stay in your home, or your spouse is not well, but you want to be able to run to the grocery store and not worry. It gives you that peace of mind. The only thing it's missing, and he promised me, the inventor will have it by the end of the year, is a personal emergency response system. Because if you fall outside the house, you still need something else. So if he makes it part of this, and it should be pretty easy to do, then you're really covered. So, and like I said, I could talk for hours. Yes,
So while you're on that one,
yes.
do you have any recommendations or favorites for personal,
They're all good.
like
They're-
the Apple? Is there a non-Apple Watch that does the same
Yes.
thing? That's
There-
smaller, that Apple Watch does not
That,
fit me.
those, yeah, you have tiny wrists, I can see from here. There are all kinds of things. Reach out to me and I'll give you some recommendations.
Okay.
I don't like the Apple Watch. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's got many uses and many benefits, but as a personal emergency response thing, it just, it misreads things too often.
Huh.
Somebody I know was a tennis player, young guy, but he had an Apple Watch, and he tripped, but he didn't fall. And it's like, do you want us to call the paramedics? Are you okay? So he's worried that it won't recognize it when he really does fall.
Oh.
It also, they don't,
It's kind of the jack of all trades, so it doesn't do anyone all that good.
yeah, exactly. It also, the best ones actually have a plan to call someone. They're not allowed to call 911. Most of them. I think all of them, but they're allowed to call somebody for you who can call 911.
Oh.
And the automatic systems cannot do.
Yeah, Alexa can't do that, Google Nest can't do that, but they can call somebody you designate who can then call 911. It means still that you're not laying in the bathroom floor. So, but I have a personal prejudice against Life Alert. I hate the way they sell. I don't think we have to be scared into doing things. We're very intelligent people. We all got through school without Google. We had to learn the Dewey Decimal System and things like that.
Got around without MapQuest.
Yeah, got around with MapQuest. Or before that, we had those map books
Yeah.
for every county. So, any other questions before I turn it over? Yes, ma'am.
If I'm in my experience, limited though it is that if you're planning to do this, you do it when you're healthy. You can take care of your home, make sure it is safe, not wait until you're so ill that you can't manage it anymore, and that makes it very hard on everybody.
You're absolutely right. The problem is,
Yeah.
no matter what your age is, there's so many demands on your wallet. And these things are not cheap.
So I demanded my husband do that because I've seen it too often and people wait a long time. And it turned out it worked out well. My husband had cancer and brought him home in hospice care. The whole floor was ready for him. The bathroom was, everything is set up. They even had the
I'm sorry
door.
for your loss.
Okay, so that taught me, because I told him that's what we need to do now while we can still do it. And it worked out very well. I have an entire floor, 2 different electrical systems upstairs and downstairs. You can turn off the upstairs if I don't need to go there. We move the washer and dryer all on one level. We have a deck we can walk out into.
You know what else is good?
We have to put railings to enter the house because my house, she knows, my house right now is one of the few houses with a yard. All of our friends have downsized, and so they use my house. I entertain them once a month or so they get the green grass in the house.
That's nice.
But the one they all complain about is I don't have grab bars, so that's one thing you have to put in. So yeah, but you do it ahead of time. I've seen it too often, and people wait, and then at the end they regret and they can't do it. They're older or they're sicker and they can't manage it. So
One of the things that propelled me to this
yeah.
was I had an unexpected, somewhat catastrophic illness. Nobody told me I was dying, so I didn't. And I spent 4 months in the hospital, and I came home, and I couldn't get up my steps, as I mentioned. I didn't cry the whole time I was in the hospital. Boy, I bawled my eyes out about those steps. But just adjusting, and then 2 years later, I fell and broke my leg in 3 places. Just because I had gotten any attention at a hospital in a while, I guess. But it made me aware of the fact that you have to think about these things. So it can be done in a hurry. You know, I mean, I've got contractors that know, when I say it needs to be done, they'll drop what they're doing and come in and do it, but there's always a cost.
Yeah. And you can pay for it better when you're working, when you're retired.
Very true.
You don't worry as much.
So hopefully that helps you with plan. Oh, one last thing, with your house too, you're set up perfectly should you need nursing care in home, which there are now agencies that will place a live-in person with you. So there's real continuity. You can get them out of your way,
Yeah. No,
which is huge when you're used to not having people in your house.
the problem right now is when you lose a spouse, they usually tell you wait 1 year, don't make any decisions.
I think
And I found that we lived in Howard County for 35 years. My family are all in Bethesda and Northwest DC. So they want me to move there, and I know nobody there. So I know this is where I'm going to stay, because all my friends are TVIH, and I
Well-
belonged to Rotary Club before that, so they are.
now you have ammunition,
Yeah,
and you say to your family,
yeah.
I need my 5 pillars, and I have them here. I don't have them
But
in
I'll
Bethesda.
make up my own.
So I would like to introduce my friend Judith Carroll.
Hello.
This is my friend Judith Carroll. She's the other side of the coin. If you decide you want to move, she's the person that knows how to help you do that. And she can let you know all of the ins and outs and what you need to worry about. And I'll get out of her way.
Well, you guys already brought up a lot of really good points, and I know for many people the goal is to stay in their home, but some people are ready to move on. You talked about that you kind of have made that choice for yourself. So, again, I'm gonna pass some stuff out before I get started, just so you have it. These are my brochures and my business card if anybody wants one. This is actually gonna follow my slides, and you can take notes on them. So, there should be enough for everybody. And then I have pens too, in case you never have. So here you are, you can pass those along as well. So, you know, as we were saying, and you pointed out so nicely about, you know, you really want to kind of have a plan before you need a plan. So you want to have thought about some of these things before you need it. Things can be done quickly, things can be done, but you make your best decisions, I think, when you have more time to think about them and you're not under the gun. So the environments that I'm going to talk about, some different options that you have. There are communities that are considered continuing care retirement communities. A good example of that might be like Fairhaven or Charlestown or Miller's Grant. So a community like that would be something that has independent living, it has assisted living communities, memory care communities, and then also like skilled rehab, and it's all on one campus. They're usually pretty big campuses, and they're all there for you. The idea is to age in place and stay in one area. The next, I have like independent living communities such as 55 and over communities, something where there's no like health care per se in the community, but it's designed for people who are aging. And then we have assisted living communities. And I'm just going to throw out some other terms that people use because sometimes it gets confusing. Sometimes people will call them personal care homes, assisted living community, a group home. You might hear them refer to an assisted living, an ALF, assisted living community. So you might hear those are all interchangeable. And then finally you have your dementia or memory care. So those are pretty self-explanatory. And then skilled nursing facilities, you might hear that referred to. That's really what you think of as a traditional nursing home, skilled nursing facility, a subacute, a rehab. So a lot of those will all fall under, and people use the terms interchangeably. Sometimes I've seen when someone's being discharged them from a skilled like a rehab unit, the social worker has sent them, here's some places you can try out that are near your house. And some of them were assisted living and some of them were other nursing homes. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. So you gotta kind of know what you're working with. So I'm going to talk a little bit about each type. So the CCRC, some advantages and disadvantages. One of the big advantages with the CCRC is that you're aging in place. They usually have a pretty significant buy-in, like we were talking about with Miller's Grant. I would think about the buy-in into the community to be something around the average price of a home in the area. And depending on what type of apartment you want in a CCRC, it could be quite a bit more. So the lower end buy-in might be if you're just going into like a one-bedroom studio apartment or something, it's going to be lower. But if you want like a two-bedroom suite or one of the, it's going to be a higher buy-in. They also do financially qualify you because they want to be able to take care of you throughout your life, and so they want to make sure that the funds are there. The buy-in might be refundable. It depends, and it's usually partially refundable depending on how long you're in the community, and it depends on the contract. There's a lot of different contracts out there. But I guess the other idea is that if you do run out of your other funds, they will start eating away at that buy-in that was put up when you entered. Some of the advantages of this is when we talk about those 5 pillars, there's a lot of community activities. When you enter in independent living, there's a lot to do there. It's a secured neighborhood, the entire campus is secured. There's walkways between the different buildings that are all environmentally controlled. And there's going to be a healthcare center on the campus. They usually have some transportation, buses that would run to preset destinations, as well as maybe you can ask for certain things. You'd have to check it out because it's going to be, restricted as far as what you can do, but there will be some of that there, so that does take care of some of your transportation needs. One of the things that can be a negative for some people depends on how much mobility you have and how much you like to walk or to whatever you're doing. Everything's going to be wheelchair and handy, accessible for walkers and all that, but it can be a long walk. So there might be multiple restaurants, and so depending on where your apartment is and the restaurant of your choice or whatever, you might have a significant walk. I mean, these are, like I said, they're big campuses. So that's something to consider. Is that something that appeals to you, or is that something that you would see as a negative? There could be your car, if you have a car there, that car could be pretty far from your apartment as well, because the campuses are mostly designed for all the walking and for getting around. So really good option for some people, maybe not for everybody.
Let me say one disadvantage that people just never mention, but it's a hugely for me and for a lot of people. They assume and almost insist that you're going to be eating in their dining areas all the time. I like a lot of my own cooking, and the kitchens are never adequate.
Well,
Never.
that's been changing.
That would be very nice, because I tell you,
Even
the
in
ones
Charlestown,
that-
when they rehab an apartment, the kitchens are,
that-
mostly they're pretty nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have the hours in mind.
They usually do have though a buy-in that you have to buy a certain number of meals per month.
That's the part I object to.
Yeah.
I have lots of food issues, and they can't eat that much.
Yeah, I don't like a lot of that, but what I mind even more is even if I say, okay, I'll pay for the daggone meals and then cook my, whatever I wanna cook, the kitchens are not big enough to accommodate my air fryer and my mixer and my et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, it's definitely geared toward people who are interested in that lifestyle and walking away from some of the cooking, I think.
Mine, but it's been 5 years since I started making up my mind. And I've gone all over the place. And one of the things that occurred to me, and it depends on your own personality and what you're looking for, smaller places, like I went to a place in Annapolis that's on the bay, and it only has like 174 units, which is pretty small and somewhat comparable to Miller, which right now, although they're beginning to expand. And what I realized compared to like Charlestown is if you get into a community and you can't find your tribe, you're stuck.
Yeah.
Whereas you go to a larger community, you've got a larger choice of where your tribe is.
That's a good point, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because in order to take advantage of what you have in one of these campuses, you really want to dive into the people that are there and the services that are there. One of the other disadvantages that, they talk about the aging in place, but if you were to advance and need a higher level of care, or if you were to need, say, to go to the memory care, it does involve moving apartments. So you're in the same campus, but it might not necessarily be able to stay in your independent living apartment the whole time. All these places, though, will allow you to bring in nursing care if you were to want to have somebody come in and help. You can do that. But if you were, yeah, you have to do that. Absolutely. So if you were to want to move to the assisted living side, or to this, if you need a skilled visit or stay, then that would again be a move from your apartment.
There's another consideration, which is the larger ones, most of the mid-sized, smaller ones, have some kind of transportation available, but only within a small radius.
Yes.
So you're still gonna need to do Uber or something if you're not driving it.
Yeah, and if you are driving your car, again, might be far away from your apartment.
Yeah.
But like, so if you were, they do usually have a health center in the campus, and so you can use your primary care there, but they're not gonna have all the specialties there, and you might not want to use that primary care. You might wanna continue to use your old primary care. So it's, it's giving you some of the pieces, but not necessarily perfect.
So what I was hoping for was you would help us figure out how to make up our minds.
Well,
You've done it on the
maybe
board already, you know what you want.
Yeah, I know what I want, which is to stay where I am, but I
can't stay where
I
you
have
are.
you, well,
You can stay where you are.
what, you
There's
haven't seen my
nothing-
house, it was built in 1896.
There's nothing.
Wow.
There's no architectural barrier that can't be changed, provided you throw enough money at it.
You'll come out and see me.
Provided you throw enough money at it. That's the caveat.
That.
However, when you look, you have to look at what you're throwing at someplace else.
Right.
There's the 5 pillars just give you places to look and say, I have this at home, I don't have this there. I have this there, I don't have this at home. That's what those are great for.
So I think for me, and I'm imagining for most people, it's how you consider for yourself inside what your barriers are and what that's about.
Okay.
Because like all the things that you just talked about are my barriers.
Right.
You know, the food thing, the lack of access to my car, and the activities and getting to know new people, and which is the other thing, and then horrible thing to say, but walking into a dining room every day with very aging people, which I'm not,
Right.
it irks me, and it affects me in, a way like, I don't wanna be like that, and I don't wanna have to be around it all the time, and that's really, really biased.
Well, that's,
No, it's
that's
not like
biased.
an independent 55.
Well, that's what I'm thinking
Yeah,
of,
but then you'll do.
as an interim step. So yes.
Well, and I'm gonna kind of get to this as we keep going, but like, one of the things I recommend before you make any decisions is to really visit the communities. Ask if you can come to an activity, ask if you can come to a meal, and see what the community looks like. I mean, you guys, sounds like a lot of you have been to Charlestown and to Miller's Grant. Some of them, the dining rooms probably have a very thriving community of seniors that are killing it, and everybody's doing great. And then some of them, especially if you're looking more in an assisted living, you're gonna see more people who are aging in different stages. So visiting, doing your homework, checking out, seeing what's there. And like you had mentioned, do you think my tribe is here? Like, what is the feel of the community is really important. But you're not gonna have the time to do all that if you're making that decision if you're in a,
Resident.
yeah, if you kind of,
I found a couple of things.
Okay.
I found a couple of things that help. One is to go unexpected. If they don't know you're coming, just walk up.
Most of them don't let you do that.
See how the
Yeah.
receptionist treats you.
Yeah, so. but-
especially after you've had a visit.
Yeah, so the other, what you were saying about go in and get a feel for, one of the things I've asked when I've been to places is, so what kind of orientation is there? How do you enter into this community if you don't know anybody there already?
Right.
And, you know, I know a lot of people who are Charlestown and Riderwood, they've known people first.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so they usually do, they have they welcome you in. I mean, they have a lot of people who help you with that. I know Charlestown has people who can even help you move with the move and.
Oh, yeah, and
But they're
downsize
very
and pack and
bossy.
everything.
They are very bossy.
Oh,
My next door neighbors moved in and that was criminal what they made her get rid of. I mean, she's sobbing about stuff and this mover was like a Nazi.
Really?
And I kept saying, Lynn, the worst that happens is you take it there and sell it there. I mean,
that's true.
nobody should be crying because somebody thinks they need to get rid of stuff that's part of them.
Yeah.
That's a whole other subject.
Yeah, it is.
I wanna hear about that.
Okay, I'm going to.
So, 55 and over communities, again, another option.
Okay, so you're in Sykesville, right?
I'm in Sykesville, but I also work in Howard County and in Frederick County and
Okay.
Baltimore County, yeah.
I'm only saying that if you have a restriction on your driving, you will only drive within a certain perimeter, right? So then, you need to be a place where, like, you're interested in the arts, you better be close to a place.
Yes,
Yeah.
wherever
Because-
your community involvement is and whatever that is,
Right.
it's important to make sure that you've considered how will I still get to my, but like I know with Charlestown, they have activities that go outside, so they might go to the theater once a month or something,
Most
so
of
different
the
things you
places
can
do.
sign up
Right.
in addition to their routine sweeps.
Besides TVIH, in addition to it, particularly if you want to go somewhere at night,
Yeah.
go grandma.
Go grandma.
It's a driving service. It sounds very expensive, but if you give up your car, it's cheaper than your car. For $400 a month, you have unlimited driving for a family, night, day, on call.
Wow, that's great.
They work with Uber and Lyft, but they safeguard your well-being. I know of people who use it, they love it. They had some hiccups in the beginning, but they worked them
Go,
out.
grandma.
Go grandma.
So with the 55 and over communities, some of the advantages are that you can actually buy. It could be a condo. It's usually a condo type situation so that you're not responsible for the grounds. And that's another advantage, that you don't have to do yard work, but yet you have it there. There's some of them are rentable, so it could be a rental, but it could also be something that you purchase. They probably have some sort of a community center, and you can ask about what are the activities like. That's probably going to be more resident driven, so it depends on who's living there and what they've done,
Unless there's a paid person.
unless they have a paid activity
Yeah,
center.
and then it's much more organized and there's much more available. And not all of the independent living have that kind of availability.
Because they're each independently owned and operated. Some of
Yeah.
them, it's just merely that they're condos that are restricted for 55 and over, and others are more of a community. So you have to kind of look at what you're getting and what you're buying into. But the construction should be more geared for senior living. Already the doorways are wider, the bathroom, you have to look at each individual one, but the bathroom should be better equipped to handle you as you age. You probably don't have grab bars or things like that. That might be things that you would still need to add, but some of them haven't. So that's one of the advantages that you, as far as having to retrofit your house, it should be there. But there is not healthcare or assistance with your, they call it ADLs, activities of daily living, bathing, dressing, those kind of things that sometimes people need as they age. So you would be bringing people in for that. Or if you get to a certain point, you need to move into an assisted living type setting, it would not, you'd have to move. So we talked about that, but again, even at the CCRCs, at some point you might have to move from your apartment. So the monthly cost though is gonna be less because you don't have some of those activities and different things that you're paying for in a community that's geared for the whole package.
There's usually an HOA fee though, right?
Yes, and there is already
Condo.
another fee, yes, because again, you're not maintaining any of your yard. Did you have any questions on any?
Not yet.
Okay. Alright, so assisted living communities. These can vary greatly between one community to another community. They usually have, some of them will have an independent living section and an assisted living section. There's usually a community fee, but it's nothing like the buy-in of a CCRC. And obviously it's suited and ready for if you need assistance with medication, administration, assistance with any of the ADLs. Usually there's at least what is it, like a rope in each room so you can signal that you need help. Every place I have visited, they do a check-in system where they just check in to make sure that everybody's out and about in the day. So they kind of have they will come knock on your door if they haven't seen you all day or you haven't checked in.
Is there a way to compare costs for assisted living and bringing people into your own home?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to kind of price it out and see which assisted living, because again, the cost of assisted living can be very varied, depends on what you're looking for. But yeah, you can definitely do that to see, depends on how much care you need too in the house and what kind of care. There's assistance like something like Visiting Angels, which comes out and helps you with like bathing and dressing and eating and those kind of things. And then there's might be more like a nursing care, like if you needed something more like wounds or medication management, that kind of thing.
Average nursing in home care right now is about $35 an hour. You can get it cheaper, you can get it a little more expensive, but that's a good rule of thumb to figure it out, if that helps.
So, on average, in this area, the average cost of assisted living, it really depends on your level of care, because they take into account how much you need. When you go in as independent, it's definitely the least expensive, but you're probably looking somewhere around $5,000 to $6,000 a month, and then again, that's very wide. There's a wide range, but then with higher levels of care, it's up to $9,000 a month to $10,000 a month. Dementia care and memory care. A lot of people ask me, well, what's the difference if I'm going in, or you're sending someone to an assisted living? What's the difference between dementia care and the memory care? One of the two big things usually is definitely a secured unit, so that the entrance and exit to the particular area where the people are living is secured, so people can't just wander in or wander out. That's an important piece. The training for the staff is going to be different, more geared obviously at dementia and that type of care, and then and the training of the staff, and then the activities and the things that they would do while they're there is going to be more geared for dementia and memory care. Usually this is something that people do not consider until they are further along. So if you came in with some cognitive deficits and looked at it, you'd think, I don't belong here. So that would be something that is usually reserved for once people are further along and need a lot more assistance. So with the assisted living and memory care, The communities, even if you're in assisted living under is an independent, its meals are included, and the kitchenette would be even smaller than what you're probably thinking of at Charlestown. But again, that's going to depend on the community that you choose and what you've chosen. So skilled nursing and rehab, I wanted to talk about that because it gets confusing. So a lot of people will say, oh, what about this place up here? And it's like, well, that's a skilled nursing and rehab center. It's not an assisted living. Skilled nursing and rehab is generally paid for by Medicare or Medicaid. It has 24-hour nursing care, so there's an actual RN on staff and they're around the clock. Plus you have your aides and whatnot. So with each incident are you guys familiar with the way that it's paid for out of Medicare? I have a slide about that if you want me to go into that a little bit. So with each qualifying event, and that starts the day you enter the hospital or the day you enter a skilled nursing facility, you have 20 days of paid Medicare at 100%. And that is going to be, so if you've had a fall, if you need rehab, it's 20 days that you're eligible for. But you have to qualify. So as you're in rehab, if you're progressing really well, and they're like, you've met all your goals after 10 days, then they're going to say it's time for you to leave after 10 days or you have to start paying privately. So you have 20 days that qualify. On day 21, it becomes a copay. So you are paying a co-insurance part of your of that stay. If you have a supplemental in coverage, that would probably pick up most of that co-insurance. But if you don't, then that's going to fall on you. So that would be day 21 through 100. Keeping in mind again that you still have to qualify to be there. And then, so some things that can help, that can qualify if you're on like IV therapy, or if you have a wound, or if you're still doing rehab and you're still progressing and you haven't met your goals, that could keep you there for a longer time. And then so within a calendar year, you can have more than one qualifying event, but it would have to have 60 days of not being in any kind of skilled nursing or hospitalization, and then if a new event were to happen, then those 20 days and the whole thing would start over again. So that's how that's paid for. What I see, I do a lot of helping with people who are maybe it's a family member who contacts me, their loved one has had an event, they're in a rehab situation, and they are not going to be okay to come back to their original living situation. So maybe they didn't plan ahead, and they didn't get their house ready, so they can't do the steps, or it's just no longer safe for them. That's when they call and they say, okay, now I gotta find an assisted living for my mom or whatever. And so again, you have only a certain amount of time. They tell you again, it's 20 days. I just put that out there for you or anyone that you know. Don't count on 20 days because you don't know how long you're actually gonna get and how long it's gonna still qualify. So.
Did it used to be 30 days before?
I don't remember it being 30 days.
Because I got my long-term care insurance based on 30 days.
Oh.
And I'm not changing it now because of the lifetime coverage, and
That's great.
they don't want, they want to take it back.
Yeah, maybe it was 30 days at one time. I don't remember that. I remember the 20 days, so could have been. So when you're making the decision, you had asked me about that, and it's a big decision. So anyone I work with, I never try to rush them or push them or anything. I mean, this is a big decision. It's expensive, and it's how you're going to live. So you have to kind of decide what's most important to you and where you feel like what fits best. Finances are often a big driver. Let's face it, if you can't afford a CCRC, then you take that off the table. If if your house has too many obstacles that you can't afford, then that becomes something that you have to then think about. So finances are a big driver, but again, Marian can really help you figure out ways, and she's got a lot of things that could cost a lot less than maybe what you just Googled. So the other thing is your health, obviously your current needs, and thinking about do I have any diagnoses? Do I have anything that would probably tell me that in the relatively near future I might need more help than I'm getting right now?
Well, but she also had to decide what place she wants to live in. If she needs, because of the, again, the location, would she be able to go to a hospital of her choice? Because the
Yeah.
ambulance will
That's
take you
another
there.
thing about the CCRCs, like for
Yeah.
instance, Charlestown only uses St. Agnes.
Okay, yeah, see, that's why yeah, we're not thinking to do, yeah.
Yeah,
I wish they
because
didn't have that.
if they call 911, they're gonna take you to the closest
They go to
hospital,
the
so that's
nearest
gonna be
hospital.
St. Agnes.
However, Howard County is always full, so you will go to a lot of.
That's
I
true.
spent 12 hours in that ER a number of years ago, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So community, that was the other thing too, thinking about how can I get my community, it's one of the pillars of successful aging. You wanna have people that you can socialize with. Maybe you do wanna age in your home and that's really your preference, but if all of the people that were in your community have decided to go to other living environments and now your neighborhood doesn't have that same community that you used to have, maybe that becomes something that isn't as desirable anymore, or you have to then figure out a way to create that community. So looking at, like we talked about, what are the activities that any particular place that you might choose has, and how engaged are people in it? You want to go visit it and see it. Are people, and are they more like me, or are they, falling asleep while this guy is playing music? So you want to know what's really there, what's the population that's in the community that you choose. Transportation, we talked a lot about that already. I love this Go Grandma. Go Grandma. Another thing to consider is the staffing. This is particularly like if you're looking at assisted livings and that kind of thing. What is the staffing? You want to ask those kind of questions. What's the ratio of resident to staff member? It's a big piece. In an ideal situation, you want that to be about 1 staff member per 4 or 5 residents. That's it.
In the dementia units, the staffing is better,
It should be,
Should
yes.
Well, the ratio is better.
the ratio,
I
yeah.
don't know whether the
Should be.
clinical
Yeah,
part is
that was
better.
for when I had to choose where my mom went.
Yeah, so that's
There was
one of the
more-
pieces.
more care.
It's
The
also
other-
the training of the staff.
The training,
Yeah.
whether they're GNAs or CNAs.
What's a
or-
GNA?
A GNA is a geriatric nurse assist.
Oh.
So they have to go a little further and
Yeah,
they're trained in geriatrics.
The whole thrust of dementia care has changed radically from when my mom was aging 20-some years ago. And now the thrust should be, rather than try to bring someone with dementia into our reality, it's we enter theirs.
Yeah.
And you wanna make sure the staff buys into that, because
Yeah.
otherwise they relive painful moments over and over again. It's horrible.
Another thing about staffing that a lot of people don't think to ask, it's not just the ratios, but also I like to ask or know about the turnover of staff.
Yeah.
Do they have a really high turnover in the people that would be caring for your whoever? And then also looking at, what about in the top positions? How long has your director of nursing been there, or the administrator in the building? Those things have a huge impact in the whole process and the whole staffing model. So when you see a lot of turnover in that higher level, that tells you that that building is in transition, needs some work, I think. So anyway, these are things to consider.
It is, let me say, it is called being mortal.
Being moral. I didn't-
Mortal,
Oh, mortal.
M-O-R-T-A-L.
We've already kind of talked about the types of training that the staff receives, and these are things you can ask if you're visiting any of these places. What kind of training do the staff receive? And how engaged is the staff with the residents? So when you're walking around and looking, not just looking at the physical space, but looking at who's living there now and how are they interacting with the people who are working there. It's an important piece. And you will see a lot of variation between one community to the next, just in the culture of the people and the way that they interact. Another thing you can do, so some of the community characteristics are things we've talked about, like there's even small residential homes that that are very nice, assisted living communities, and then there's the bigger communities that we've been talking about, more like the Brightview and Lighthouse and Lorien and all those communities. So what suits your personality best? What kind of experience are you looking for? So you want to kind of think about the size of the community, again, the offerings. Most of the bigger communities will have on site like a PT and OT gym. So if you need those kind of care, you can go to the gym, but they can also come into your apartment and do those kind of things if you want to do that. And in the independent living in most of these communities, that you can also have, even actually in the assisted living side, you can have someone come if you feel like I need more than what I'm getting here. You can have someone from the outside come in to also help. To consider, but not necessarily, because not all the nonprofits are going to be this benevolent, caring community, and not all the for-profits are. So you got to kind of still look at all the different.
Just from a business point of view, having been a business person my whole life, I would suspect that the for-profits pay their employees more. And the key to every place is the employees.
Another thing that you can actually look up in online is you can go to a Marian website, which I put on the packet and it's on here, where they have their inspections. And you can ask to see the inspection when you go on a tour. You can ask about theirs. There was an article in the Baltimore Sun recently talking about how behind they are right now, but they're catching back up. So you can look and see where did they fall down in their inspections? Was it relating to care? Was it relating to the food? Was it relating to the staffing? So those are things you have access to, and you can look at that before you put your money in or make your decision. It's again, you got to look at how long ago that inspection took place, and you can ask. Okay, I saw on your inspection report that you were dinged for the food. How have you corrected that? And then, how do you know that it's not a problem again? Because they are supposed to create a way to then monitor it, to keep it from happening again. So, just because they got dinged for something, as we all know, bad things can happen anywhere, and if someone on the job falls asleep, something bad could happen. But what did you do to make sure that doesn't happen again?
So what department controls this? Who inspects all the nursing homes?
It's the Department of Aging and
Department of Aging, which falls under what? Health and
the Health and Human Services, and then in Maryland, it's like COMAR. So they do the inspections. A couple of more things to talk about when you're considering an assisted living or whatever. I talked about a little bit the community fee. In an assisted living or in a memory care type community, those are non-refundable, but they're significantly lower. They're usually 1 month's rent or less. Usually less. Usually it's the base rate, not with all the levels of care. The levels of care, keep in mind, the more you need, the more you're going to pay. So the base rate for maybe the apartment that you like could be $3,000 or $4,000 a month, but it's the level of care. Sometimes they even add one based on how many medications you take. So if you're at 11 or less, you're paying one price per month, and then if it jumps to even just one more medicine, 12, now you're paying, and the one place I'm thinking of, it was a lot more. So I'm like, does she really need that multivitamin? We're gonna take that off.
Why should they be charging you? Because
This is if
if
they're administering medicines for you.
Oh, if they're
giving them, that
But
would not be
that's not-
applicable if you were not getting if you're doing your own medication.
Okay.
So that's only if you are having them administer them for you. Laundry and housekeeping, is it included? How much is included? Usually once a week at least, a dusting and a light housekeeping in your apartment. And then laundry I've seen both ways. It's either included and they do it at all of it, or it's not included and you'd either have to pay, or they might have laundry facilities on site that you can use.
Or your relatives take it home.
Or relatives say, I've seen that too. So, big thing to consider. They also have the beauty shops usually on site, but again, that's going to be an additional cost. And then some of the activities would be an additional cost. So we were talking about like if you go to the theater, but it would, you can go, but that's not going to be included in your monthly rate. So just those things to consider. And a couple more things, bed hold policy. So if you are absent from the community, if you do have a need to go into maybe a rehab or whatever, there's a bed hold policy. You're still going to be paying something for keeping that room alive for you. So that's something you can look at before you go in. With most traditional assisted living, memory care, those kind of places, it's a 30-day termination. So you tell them we're out, and after 30 days, you're out. With the CCRCs, it's a lot more involved, so you gotta ask about those. What happens if I decide I don't wanna age in place here and I wanna leave? How do I leave? Grievances, you have the right to file a formal grievance, and there should be a process you can ask about. You wanna know who would I talk to, and how will I know that it's been handled? What kind of feedback are you gonna get? So, you can interview other residents. We talked about that. Talk to people. You guys are well connected, so you can.
Most of them, look at your insurance. I guarantee you, every one of us in here have a different insurance thing.
But strongly, before you make your final decision, I would talk to a financial planner.
Yeah.
Just because sometimes when you're in the middle of the woods, you don't see the trees.
Curious if anyone has experience with advantages, disadvantages of living with your adult children.
It is the way of the future.
Mm-hmm.
It is a coming thing. And I
Another
can't,
way you can retrofit.
you know, and there are things that can be done to their house. Do you know what an ADU is? It's an alternate dwelling unit. Used to be hard to get a permit for that. Pretty much they're issuing them to anybody that asks for them. You hate them.
But Howard County zoning is now going to allow anybody with a single-family lot, quarter acre or more, to build a detached accessory dwelling unit on their yard. Oh, yes. It's one thing to have, you know, my mother-in-law apartment or whatever.
Yeah.
But
The other, and as far as I'm concerned, because I'm sort of dealing a little bit with this, is if you haven't lived with those children of yours for 40 or 50 years, it's a negotiation of how you will live together. So I have a friend who has written about that. Her name is Beth Baker. Look up her books, because she gives you a whole guideline on things not only to think about, but to talk about.
That's what also becomes difficult, is your parent thinks that your child thinks that they're your parent.
Oh.
And,
Well, it's negotiating decisions and money and.
which is why
but
the
also-
look of it and what it does to the architecture notwithstanding, ADUs have some logic because you are alone, but not alone.
Yeah.
But multi-generational houses, be careful though if you're looking to move, because I went to tour a $2 million multi-generational home. It did not have a no threshold entry. It did not have a first floor master bedroom. It did not have a way to get up the stairs. It did not have a walk-in shower. It did not have grab bars. The only thing that made it multi-generational was it was 6 bedrooms and I think 7 bathrooms and $2 million. So they wanted to sell it to a bigger family.
They couldn't be.
I was
their
incensed.
generation. They were.
Nobody ever talks about it. What made it impossible for me to live with my parents, much as I really love them, is our lifestyles have become so very different.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, well, in addition to the fact that my mother would not quit smoking, my dad, I'm not criticizing him, but his idea of having a wonderful afternoon or evening was to watch the sports, which never goes on in my,